Never believe anyone who tells you we've figured out the ancient world, because they definitely haven't told you about these things. History books like to make the past seem neat and tidy, like a story that's already finished. But all over the world, archaeologists keep digging up objects that just don't fit the story. They're too advanced, too strange, or just plain impossible for their time. These artifacts are the glitches in our history, the question marks that leave even the smartest scientists totally stumped. Today, we're counting down the top 5 most baffling artifacts that science still can't explain. Number 5. The London Hammer. Let's start with one that sounds completely impossible. Imagine you're walking by a creek in the middle of Texas. You spot a weird-looking rock with a piece of wood sticking out of it. You crack it open, and inside is a hammer, a modern-looking hammer. What's the big deal? Well, the rock it's stuck in is said to be 100 million years old, from the time of the dinosaurs. This is the story of the London Hammer, found in London, Texas, back in 1936. When news about it got out, people went wild. A hammer from the age of dinosaurs. That would mean either humans were around back then, or time travelers were really clumsy. The story got even weirder when a man named Carl Bohr, a creationist, bought the hammer in the 1980s. He claimed it was proof of a highly advanced civilization that existed before the Great Flood mentioned in the Bible. Tests on the hammerhead showed it was made of 96.6% iron, 2.6% chlorine, and 0.74% sulfur. What's strange is that, even after all these years, it hasn't rusted. The handle looks like it started to turn into coal. For a while, the London Hammer was a superstar in the world of out-of-place artifacts. It was the perfect mystery. But then, geologists took a closer look, and the mystery started to unravel. It turns out, the rock isn't 100 million years old at all. The hammer was found in an area with a lot of limestone. When rain dissolves minerals out of limestone, it creates a kind of natural cement. If an object is left there, these minerals can harden around it, forming a brand new rock. This process is called concretion, and it can happen in just a few decades, not millions of years. So, what likely happened? A miner in the 1800s probably dropped his hammer. It fell into a crack, and over the years, mineral-rich water washed over it, slowly building a stone shell around it. The hammer itself looks exactly like a type of miner's hammer that was common in the 19th century. So, this mystery has a solution. But we're starting with it to show you how easily a good story can get ahead of the science. Now let's move on to the ones that don't have such simple answers. Number 4. The stone spheres of Costa Rica. Imagine you're cutting a path through the dense jungles of Costa Rica. Suddenly, you see it. A perfectly round, giant stone ball just sitting there. Then you see another, and another. This is what happened in the 1930s when a fruit company was clearing land for banana plantations. They stumbled upon over 300 of these stone spheres. These things are incredible. They range in size from as small as a bowling ball to over 2 meters tall, weighing up to 15 tons. That's heavier than 2 elephants. And they are almost perfectly spherical. For years, people had no idea where they came from. Some said they were made by aliens, or that they were relics from the lost city of Atlantis. But archaeologists now know they were made by an ancient people called the Diquis culture, who lived in the area between 500 and 1500 AD. And here's what makes it so baffling. They made these spheres without any metal tools. The stone they used is a hard volcanic rock called gabbro. The Diquis people would find large boulders, often miles away in the hills, and then begin the long, slow process of shaping them. They would hammer at the rock with other stones, chipping away tiny bits at a time. Then they would polish the surface with sand until it was smooth. It must have taken teams of people years, maybe even a whole lifetime, to make just one of the large spheres. But the biggest question is, why? They weren't used for anything practical. The best theory we have is that they were symbols of power and status. They were often placed in lines leading up to the houses of important chiefs, basically as a way of saying, A very important person lives here. Some spheres also seem to be lined up with the stars, suggesting they might have been part of a giant astronomical calendar or a map of the constellations. The real mystery here isn't about aliens, it's about people. Why would an entire culture pour so much effort into creating these beautiful, useless objects? It tells us they had a complex, organized society with a deep understanding of art and symbolism, but we'll never know for sure. When the Spanish conquered the area in the 1500s, the Diquís culture disappeared, and the true meaning of the spheres was lost forever. All we have left are these silent stone giants, guarding a secret we can no longer understand. Number 3. The Baghdad Battery. Our next artifact takes us to modern-day Iraq, and it's one that could change everything we think we know about ancient technology. In 1938, a German archaeologist named Wilhelm König was digging through the collections of the National Museum of Iraq. He found a small, unimpressive-looking clay pot, only about 14 centimeters tall. It was from a Parthian settlement and was about 2,000 years old. But what was inside was strange. Sealed with an asphalt plug was a copper cylinder, and inside the copper cylinder was an iron rod. König looked at the object and had a wild thought: iron, copper, and a pot to hold liquid. It looked just like a primitive battery. The idea seemed crazy. The first modern battery was invented in 1800 by Alessandro Volta. These little pots were 1,800 years older than that. But the theory was testable. Scientists made replicas of the pot, poured in an acidic liquid like grape juice or vinegar, and sure enough, it produced an electric current. Not a lot, just about 1 or 2 volts, but it was real electricity. The TV show Mythbusters even tested it. They made 10 replica batteries, filled them with lemon juice, and when they wired them all together, they generated over 4 volts of electricity. So, if they were batteries, what were they used for? The most popular theory is for electroplating, using electricity to apply a thin layer of gold or silver onto another metal. Other, more imaginative theories suggest they could have been used for mild forms of electrotherapy, or even for religious tricks, where a priest could wire up a metal statue to give a believer a small, divine tingle. But here comes the problem. While the pot could work as a battery, there's no other evidence that the Parthians used electricity. Archaeologists have never found any wires, any lamps, or any objects that were clearly electroplated from that time. In fact, the few gold-plated items we have from that era were made using a process with mercury, not electricity. The mainstream scientific opinion is that these pots were likely just high-quality storage jars for sacred scrolls. Similar jars, with traces of papyrus inside, have been found in nearby ancient cities. The acidic residue found inside could have just come from the decaying scroll. This is a mystery with 2 good explanations, one exciting and one boring. But there's a final, tragic twist to the story. During the 2003 invasion of Iraq, the original Baghdad Battery was looted from the museum. It has never been recovered. We can no longer study the real thing. The debate is now frozen, and the secret of this little clay pot might be lost for good. Number 2. The Phaistos Disk. This next one isn't about lost technology or impossible construction. It's a pure intellectual mystery that has driven people crazy for over a century. In 1908, at the Minoan Palace of Phaistos on the Greek island of Crete, archaeologists found a flat, circular disc made of fired clay. It's about 6 inches across, roughly the size of a saucer, and it's about 3,700 years old. What makes it so baffling is what's on it. Both sides of the disc are covered with symbols, stamped into the clay in a spiral pattern, like the groove on a vinyl record. There are 242 symbols in total, made up of 45 unique characters. There's a man with a mohawk, a bird in flight, a flower, a boat, and many others. It's clearly a form of writing. The problem is, it's a language that has never been seen before or since. This isn't like other ancient Cretan scripts, such as Linear A or Linear B, which we have at least partially figured out. The script on the Phaistos Disk is a complete one-off. It's a ghost. For more than 100 years, the world's best linguists, codebreakers, and amateur sleuths have tried to crack it, and every single one of them has failed. The theories are all over the place. One respected linguist, Gareth Owens, has spent years on it and believes it's a prayer to a Minoan mother goddess. Others have claimed it's a legal code, a list of soldiers, a sacred text, a magical curse, or even an ancient board game. Some have even suggested it's an elaborate fake, though most experts believe it's genuine. The real heart of the problem is a lack of data. To decipher a lost language, you need more material to work with. Think of the Rosetta Stone, which had the same text written in 3 different scripts, including ancient Greek, which we could already read. That was the key to unlocking Egyptian hieroglyphs. With the Phaistos Disk, we have nothing else to compare it to. It's the only example of this writing in the world. Statistically, the text is just too short to prove any translation is correct. Any patterns you find could just be a coincidence. It's the ultimate cold case, a message from the Bronze Age that we can see and touch, but can't read. It's a story whispered from 4,000 years ago, and we can't make out the words. The Phaistos Disk is a perfect, beautiful, and maddeningly silent mystery.
Number 1. The Antikythera Mechanism.
We've saved the most mind-bending, history-rewriting artifact for last. This one isn't a theory or a debate. It's a fact that shouldn't exist.
The story begins in the year 1901. A group of Greek sponge divers were working off the coast of a tiny island called Antikythera. They discovered the wreck of an ancient Roman cargo ship sunk deep beneath the waves. They brought up marble statues, pottery, jewelry, and one other thing, a green, corroded, shapeless lump of bronze about the size of a large book. It was taken to the National Archaeological Museum in Athens and mostly forgotten. A year later, an archaeologist noticed something odd. Sticking out of the corroded lump was a gear wheel.
That gear was the first clue to one of the most incredible discoveries ever made. For decades, scientists studied the lump. As technology improved, they used advanced X-rays and high-resolution 3D scanning to peer inside its calcified layers. What they found was breathtaking. This was not just a lump of bronze, it was a machine, an astonishingly complex machine made of at least 37 interlocking bronze gears, some with teeth barely a millimeter long. It was an ancient Greek analog computer, and it was built over 2,000 years ago. By turning a crank on its side, the user could predict the future. The mechanism had dials on the front and back that showed the position of the sun and the moon in the sky on any given day. It displayed the current phase of the moon on a tiny, beautiful spherical model. It even modeled the moon's irregular orbit, speeding up and slowing down just as it does in reality. It had a dial that predicted solar and lunar eclipses with incredible accuracy, based on a 223-month cycle that the Babylonians had discovered. And as if that wasn't enough, it had another dial that tracked the 4-year cycle of the ancient Olympic Games, so you would always know when the next big sporting event was happening. The thousands of tiny Greek characters inscribed all over it were basically a user's manual. Now here's the kicker. This level of complex engineering, this intricate system of gears, was not supposed to exist in the ancient world. Nothing even close to the Antikythera Mechanism would appear again in human history for over 1,000 years, until the creation of the great astronomical clocks in the cathedrals of 14th century Europe. The Antikythera Mechanism simply shouldn't be there. It forces us to completely rethink what the ancient Greeks were capable of. Was this the work of a lone genius, like an ancient Steve Jobs? Or is this just the only surviving example of a technology that was once more common? It leaves us with a dizzying question. If they built this, what else did they build that is still lying at the bottom of the ocean, waiting to be found? So, from a simple hammer that teaches us about geology, to a lost language on a disk, and a computer that's 1,000 years ahead of its time, these artifacts show us that the past isn't a solved puzzle. It's a living mystery,
with secrets still waiting to be found, and what we think we know can be turned upside down by a single discovery.
If you think these objects are wild, check out our next video on ancient technologies that should have been impossible.